where things happen. So what I'm going to share with you today is I have my little container of all my palette knives, and I have a lot of different sizes. I even have a giant one that I just got. Here, I'll show it to you. It looks like, I feel like I should be on the Great British Baking Show with this. It's so huge. It didn't look that big on Dick Blick, but I'm going to do something with it and I will share it with you. Doesn't it look like I should be on the baking show? By the way, I love that show. Olivia and I love the British Baking Show. I think that's what it's called. I don't have the title quite right. So anyway, I have a lot of different sizes of, I don't know what the numbers are because they're so glommed up with paint and everything. So I'm gonna just flip the camera around, and they have these little wildflowers from my garden. Okay, so here are, I'm gonna move this over. Let me just pull these out and show you what I have. So I have these are very similar in size, and they make different marks, and I've just experimented with them. This is how I approach all art supplies. I don't follow any rules. I just do what feels natural to me. This one, I love this one, and I wish I could tell you what size it is, but I don't know. But this is a great one. I can get some very beautiful effects with it. Make sure this is all showing up here. And this one is great. And you know what I do mostly with this? I kind of clean my palette with it, but I can also make cool marks, and I'll demonstrate that. This one, I actually use it when it's flat, it doesn't have the bend in it. I use it to get my pigment out of the bottle. It seems to, so I don't dump it all out onto my palette. And I love this tiny one, and I'm going to show you some of the things I've made. So I'm going to put these back in here. And so when I first started really working on these mixed media flowers, I would use this molding paste, which I'm going to demonstrate today, mixed with my acrylic paints, and use the palette knife, a couple different sizes. And this is when I did this image, is if you sign up for my newsletter, you get this as a free download that you can send to your printer. And so, I just can kind of move through and push the paint, and it grabs pastel, and you just get this really beautiful gesture in your drawings. If you are an artist who is not working on a more photorealistic, fully rendered piece of art, if you want to add a little bit more expressive movement, which I think is really beautiful. So that's one that I did. And then this one I did for a class. It was Paint Your Heart and Soul, and it's an oil painting, and it will be available. There's like a speck, I don't know where that came from, on her cheek. I did it there. It will be available on my site in the summer. But I think I used this one, and I really love the way the collar came out. And it was just a matter of putting down some paint and pushing I wanted to get, I don't know if you can see it, but I was trying to achieve like these little pleats, but also see her neck through it. I was trying to make this transparent collar, and then pushing the paint. And then I just went back in and kind of formed it with my brush and added some thicker movement. But it's great because you can get on the edge of your palette knife and make great movements. And then, I use the smaller ones for the flowers, as to shape the flowers. And it's really great for making petals, I think. And then this was from my recent class over at Jean's site, the wallflowers. And it was layers and layers. This was all made from acrylic paints and a glazing medium. And I did not use any molding paste, only the glazing medium, and the final layers are the palette knife, which you can kind of see here. And different palette knives, you can kind of skip across the canvas, and you can get really beautiful like little blobs that I think are interesting, that bring movement. Like I love how this little flower looks, and this happened by accident, and you know, this little edge that I can't repeat that. It just happens. And so by working with a palette knife and practicing it, you're going to find the different ways, and then maybe bake a cake. I don't know, that one. All right, so what we're gonna do, actually I should leave them here. This, I played with this morning. This is just watercolor. So I just took a little bit of water, and I'm gonna do this again. And then this one is another little one I did with the palette knife and some oil pastel. I used oil paints. So I used watercolor, and then this is a quick little practice with acrylic paint and some molding paste. So I'm going to show you that, and we'll play around. So let's see. I think what I'll do first is just kind of show you some different movements you can do. Let me get this is my stack of paper from last week. I'm just going to put this here and take a little bit of paint. Let me move, my wildflowers are in the way. Okay, let's see, is this all lining up good? And let's just, how about I get, you know what, I'm gonna use this really beautiful Charvin, it's oil paint. And I'm not using oil paper, I just have a piece of watercolor paper here. And I'm just gonna take a few of them and just make some marks. And of course, it's very good for mixing your colors together. Sometimes I mix with my brush directly onto the palette, or I mix on the surface. Okay, so this is a skinny one. So if I put it down, you can get some very interesting marks. And let's see, let's try another. Now this little one, I use this one a lot for flowers because I can get like these little petal shapes. So this is, you know, by playing around with that and going back in and layering color over color. So I just have one color here. All right, this one is another shape. So I had this kind of pointy one here, and so you're gonna get different movement with different sizes and shapes. A little bit more paint down. This is my favorite one here. I use this one all the time for mixing, and it's a nice size. I like this kind of teardrop shape. It has a good bend in it. It's very flexible, and you can get some really nice coverage and interesting shapes. I'm gonna put a little bit of white down. This is oil. I'm still in oil right now. Now this paint is a little thicker, but I like how I can just kind of skip over and mix so that you get that. And I couldn't do that with a brush. And then you can just kind of move things around. So when I'm playing with the palette knife, I experiment before I go to the paper, or to the canvas or whatever I'm working on, like the woman's collar. I experimented with that before I did it on her because I was like stressing myself out about it. Like, oh no, everything came out good, and now am I gonna ruin it? All right, so I'm just gonna scrape this up a little bit. And let's see, what other ones do I have? Oh, this one. So this one can get some good globs, you know, you can make marks. And I'm doing this on paper, so it's not going to be as beautiful as on a wood panel, but you can I can't talk, that's what happens sometimes. You can do some repetitive movements with your palette knife and build up a cool texture. And let me pull that off so I can just make all kinds of little, okay? All right, so that's most of them. Let me just, I think it mainly comes down to the size that you want to work with. And I didn't wear gloves. I guess I didn't think I was going to get that messy with this, but okay. So if you want to make flowers, I would get a few, like this one's great for leaves, a skinny one. And there's, on Amazon, I think I even have a link in my little shop on my website that has like a little kit you can get, or an assortment. Okay, so a piece of watercolor. So this one is cold press, sorry. And it's got the little bumps in it. So we're gonna see. And this one I did on hot press, so it's smoother. So it's gonna be a little bit different. So I'm going to, where's my water? Here's my water. Oops, sorry, I mean to make it all. And I think I'm gonna take and put a little bit of water down here. And I have some watercolor here that I just put in right before the lesson. So it's just a little bit of blue, and I diluted it with water. So I'm just gonna put it in here with my brush. And let's see, so now what I'm gonna do, I don't know if I have enough to do this. I have to make some more. Okay. All right, I need some more. So I'm gonna put a little bit of water in here and a little bit more. So I'm trying to get a little puddle of watercolor pigment. There we go. Just gonna pour it here and then push it. So one of the things that I try to get into my art, which I think is interesting, is movement, like how I move my body, how I hold things, and try to not be too controlled on certain things. All right, so now I'm gonna take a little bit of this and put it on my little bit of pigment, and then oh, that's really very beautiful. Okay, so I'm using the edge. Splashes, okay, kind of like that. All right, I'm gonna clean it off now. My favorite olive green. You know me and olive green. So it needs just a little bit, don't you think? Just a tiny bit of olive green. Never hurt anything. All right. That's cool. All right, so I'm gonna take this skinny one here. I like this one. And just kind of pull up. There we go. That's cool, for lack of a better adjective. All right, then I have a Stabilo here. And so I had made this, I like to make this kind of weird rectangle shape in some of my work, so to kind of balance out, I really like how this happened, and what I may do is even put in some pastel later. So I think I'll just kind of put it down here and kind of draw something. Dragging that Stabilo through. Okay. And then when it dries, I might go in and add a complementary color, like maybe a burnt sienna to this, just to add. Let me see if I have some over here. I always have a little burnt sienna floating around. It's wet, so I'm not sure it's gonna, oh yeah, so maybe just add just something to pop out, and maybe a little bit of pink by it. So there we go. And this is, oh, Renee. Wait, I think it's okay. I got the baby wipe here. All right, so there we go. So I used a palette knife and a Stabilo, and I think that's kind of cool. And it just shows you can make some really interesting marks with just water. You could do a whole ink splotchy thing, but what I really love is I love what happened here, and I loved what happened here with the pigment right on the palette knife, and then how this is kind of bleeding in, and I wasn't controlling it. It was just, I was letting it happen, and it's just using the movement. And so when you're doing something like this, you want to stand up, because when you're sitting, and quite often when I'm filming classes, I'm sitting down, I'm kind of in a tight, confined space to make sure everything is really, you can see it and you understand it. But I really like to stand up and use my entire body. And so you plant your feet into the ground, and then just however it comes naturally to you. You and I will make different movements. We all write our names differently. We hold our brushes differently. I like what happened here on this one too. So what you can do is just buy maybe a pad of inexpensive watercolor paper, and you can do the same technique with acrylic paints as well. All right, now I'm gonna go back to, I'm just gonna do a little, let's see, let's do one more. See what I have here. I don't know if I have oil paper cut up, but I'm gonna make a couple little, oh, I know what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you the, here, let me put this here, the molding paste. Okay, so I have to mix this up. All right, so I'm going to go over here and just put a little bit of olive green. I've got this pretty pale olive, but it's not quite olive really. And I have a little bit of indigo. All right, and I have some white. So I'm gonna just mix up a color that, now where's my, okay. All right, so I'm gonna mix. So I'm using acrylics, and I'm gonna take a little speck of that olive green, the pale olive, and the indigo, just to kind of show you it's very satisfying to mix the paint. And you're just gonna get a richer color when it's all distributed. I didn't do very much, but I think I need more white. A little bit more blue. This olive green is one of my favorites. It's kind of a more yellowy, and it's M. Graham, and I've been using it for quite some time. I really love it. Okay, so a little bit more blue. Ooh, a lot of blue. All right. I just take part of it and put it over there, and maybe a little, here we go. All right, I think this is a piece of watercolor paper here, and I'm going to take it onto my palette knife, and I'm just going to push it. All right. Next, I'm gonna rip off my palette knife, and I'm gonna take, there's light molding paste and molding paste, excuse me. So I have a clean palette knife. Don't do that because it gets all gray, but sometimes I get caught up in the moment and I don't use a clean palette knife. Okay, so I just want you to see the difference. This one is a lot thicker, and I don't love this one it's very thick and gooey. I like the light molding paste, and I use this quite often in my flowers. All right, so I'm gonna take a little bit more white. I'm gonna take some molding paste, and I'm gonna put it in the white paint first. So you really need to use your palette knife to get this mixed up so it kind of gets kind of creamy, but you can see the difference. It's not as shiny now, and it's almost like frosting. Okay, so then I can just skip over and create a layer, which I think is really pretty. Okay, and then I'm gonna do some with the thicker molding paste so you can see. Oops, wait, I just got confused, hold on. All right, it's very, very thick. Let's take some of this. So it's very monochromatic right now, but it's just a little practice piece. And let's see, where did I put my still out? There it is. I'm gonna go with the same idea here. And then I can go through and smooth out some areas. Now it's just looking like a big old blob, but that's okay because it's Facebook Live and it's okay that it's a blob. I don't mind. Oh, well, there we go. That kind of helps it. Wait, we need more olive green. When in doubt, I just have a lot of material on my, all right. Like that. Okay, so that's with the molding paste. You can build up, and that's what I used in this floral paint. I used a lot of molding paste, and then when the molding paste dries, it's so great because it then becomes a great ground to put pastel over it. So you can add layers of pastel. I can't do it now. I did this one, but it's not dry. So I will put pastel in places and it catches in the grooves, and you can add one more layer of material. So it's really pretty to put the pastels over it because that pigment is so beautiful. All right, I think that is it. I think I showed you everything. Okay, so so now I have all this here on my palette, this big blob here. So what am I gonna do with this? I don't wanna throw it away. That's really pretty. So I'm gonna do something with it. I'm just gonna take it and make a ground, and then I can go back over this. I can maybe even cut this up, add more layers, like a layer of white or something, and then use it in collage, or if I want some texture, cut it up, maybe add some stitching to it, but it's not wasted. Okay, so I think that, let's look at what I did here. I really like this one. I think that came out really pretty with the watercolor. And I did this one with the earlier with oils and an oil pastel. And I brought in the oil pastels with the, here, I'll move this out of the way so you can see. And you can go in with the, after the palette knife and just kind of push it around, and then you can use your palette knife to kind of scrape into it. Get some marks. So if you add layers of color, you can do that. Okay, I'm gonna get a sip of tea. Alrighty, I'm gonna flip it around and see if you have any questions. Let's see. Anyway, bye you guys. Thank you for being here. I love you. You're amazing, and I'll see you soon.